Meeting to order. If you would, please rise. I'm going to call on Commissioner Griner to lead us in the invocation and the pledge.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the blessings you've given us, Lord. Just help us to use the time and the blessings to honor and glorify your name, Lord. And just give us your wisdom tonight. Help us make decisions that follow your will, Lord. We just want to please you, and thank you for everything. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Griner. Commissioners, if you would, we have a proclamation that we'd like to deliver. If I could get you maybe to come down front, I'd like to call on Miss Deborah Tan, if she would come forward. How are you? Good. All right, the proclamation is announcing Reminiscent Day. It says, whereas Reminiscent is a local organization that seeks to enhance our community by working earnestly to promote dementia education and to empower and encourage those families on the dementia journey. And whereas Reminiscent wants its citizens who are living with dementia to be treated with integrity, inclusion, respect, and dignity. And whereas Reminiscent is the serious of dementia-friendly community with brain health on top of mind for each of us. Whereas Reminiscent offers free educational programming, and whereas Reminiscent offers several community engagement programs such as the monthly Memory Cafe, a 1-hour dementia presentation, the virtual dementia tour, access to state and national dementia resources, a traveling dementia library, and 87 podcast tips, caregivers retreat, Christian counseling, caregivers training, art therapy, and an online caregiver support group. And whereas Lowndes County is honored to have Reminiscent as part of our community, we are extremely grateful for Reminiscent and appreciative of their services. Diligence, dedication to citizens with dementia, their caregivers, and their families. Now therefore, our chairman, Bill Slaughter, on behalf of the Lowndes County Board of Commissioners, do hereby recognize June the 16th, 2022 as Reminiscent Day in Lowndes County and call this observance to the attention of our citizens. So proclaim this 16th day of June. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Great job.
Thank you.
Commissioners, inside your packets, you'll find your minutes of the work session of May the 23rd, as well as your budget work session minutes for May the 23rd, as well as your regular session minutes of May the 24th. If there are no additions, deletions, or corrections to be noted, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Hearing none, Ms. Laverne, the minutes are approved. We have agenda item 6A is our one appointment, but this is for the Southwest Georgia Region 8 Emergency Medical Services Council. Ms. Dukes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. The Region 8 EMS Council is asking for an appointment for the Regional Emergency Medical Services Advisory Council to represent Lowndes County. This seat was formerly held by Mr. David Bach, and he has since retired. Members of the council should possess interest and/or expertise in the areas of emergency medical services, healthcare, or public safety, and Ms. Emily Brown has been submitted for nomination.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Dukes? Okay, with that, I would like to put Miss Emily Brown's name in the nominations, and I will open the floor up for other nominations. Are there any?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Hearing none, then Miss Emily Brown will be appointed by acclamation. Thank you, Ms. Dukes. We'll now move into our public hearing cases. Our first is REZ 2022-09. It's the Flanagan, located in James Road. It is currently R1. The request is for CG. It has water and sewer, and it involves 7.8 acres. Mr. Dillard, I believe you have a message.
Yes, sir, I do. The applicant has requested that this case be tabled for approximately 60 days. That would put it on your August cycle, probably August 9th, in keeping with the tradition of rezoning cases being heard at the first commission meeting of the month.
Okay. So, Commissioners, what I would like to do is entertain a motion to table to either August the 9th or August the 23rd. Your choice will be fine.
Motion to table August 9th?
To August the 9th.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion's carried, and that case will be tabled until the August 9th meeting.
Yes, sir.
Agenda item 7B is REZ 2022-10, the Campus Transitional Care Facility. It's located at 2193 Howell Road. It is currently EA. The request is for a PD. It will have well and septic, and this involves 23 acres. Mr. Dillard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, the request is to rezone approximately 23 acres, currently zoned EA, to a non-residential plan development in order for a transitional care facility to be developed. Potential facility is not currently licensed for substance abuse recovery, and support counselors may visit the site. However, ongoing treatment would be performed off-site. The applicant is planning on developing the property in phases with a maximum occupancy of 5 residents per house and 1 resident per cabin. These are the 23 acres here. This is the view from Howell Road of the current property. This is the overall proposed site plan, including the house you just saw on the previous slide. You note the 6 houses and the 12 cabins. There is also a mixed multi-purpose facility in the north, including a deck for a pond, could be used as a chapel, as well as a gym, possible pool, and an equipment shelter for maintenance of the property and possible agricultural uses as far as a mixed use for a PD. Overall, staff found the request inconsistent with the character area, but consistent with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. The Planning Commission heard the request and the concerns of the neighbors, noting that there is a signed petition in opposition of approximately 450 signatures and approximately a dozen letters or so addressed to the commissioners. The Planning Commission heard the request at their May meeting and ultimately recommended denial of the request 7-3.
Any questions for Mr. Dillard? Okay. We'll open up the public hearing portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the, well, I understand that there is someone in the audience that would like to speak in opposition to this request. All right, please come forward. Wait, I'm sorry, I recognize the young lady right back here. Are you the actual spokesperson for this group?
No.
Is there a is there a spokesperson for the group? I apologize. Then let's allow the spokesperson to speak, because we will have 5 minutes. And if this is the official spokesperson, go ahead, sir.
Commissioners.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Don't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I need you to state your name and your address for the record, please.
Michael Henderson, 2581 Howell Road, Lake Park, Georgia, 31636.
Okay, sir. Go ahead.
Would everyone in the community who is in opposition of the rezoning of Howell Road please stand? there are some in overflow. I'd like to begin with stating that this is a good idea. All throughout time, there have been great ideas, but even the greatest of ideas have proven to fail without necessary details to make them successful. This community would like to go on record that in no way are we against reform or transformation of any individual in need of treatment that would assist in providing an individual with the necessary tools to live a successful drug-free life. Some of the facts presented here initially may appear irrelevant to a simple rezoning of the property. However, when that property encapsulates an entity that will impose a threat to public safety, environmental consequences, and economic impedance to the surrounding properties of the taxpayers in this community, the validity of the facts will prove to be irrevocably irrelevant. I, as an individual, have a history that will prove to justify my ability to stand before you and represent this community's concerns regarding the rezoning case REZ-2022-10. I was addicted for 15 years. During the addiction, I was in and out of rehabilitation facilities, county jail, and detox centers. At the end of the addiction in 2003, I served 7 years in the Georgia Department of Correction. During those 7 years, I completed numerous drug rehabilitation programs and graduated with honors from Okefenokee Technical College as a certified manufacturing specialist and computer technology level applicant. I was released in April 2011 after completing my last year in a stringent program at the Valdosta Transitional Center. Upon my release, I owned a few pair of clothes, I was without a bank account, a seriously less than desirable background check, no vehicle, no license, with just enough money for the first and last month's rent, security deposit, and a power installment. I walked until I saved money to buy a bicycle. I rode the bicycle until I saved for the costly fees that it was required to reinstate my driver's license, and then I saved to obtain a vehicle. Today, there are 4 of those vehicles and a government agency career and a home in 2.5 acres. But what's most important to me out of all of this is my wife and 2 kids that live with me less than 2 miles from the proposed property to be rezoned. I am an ordained minister, and I go back into rehabilitation facilities to encourage those who are where I once was. I have been clean since 2003. On the addicted side, I was a resident of programs that did not work and programs that did. One had in-house doctors and certified counselors with state funding coupled with a great curriculum, yet it failed to remain open due to the lack of detail in housing the addicted. Today, only a few programs that are successful. Through my research, I've discovered that the successful programs in this area often discharge residents due to their inability to complete programs, and they are sometimes referred to the very program that will be on the property to be rezoned. I'm not against the idea of recovery. I'm against the idea that lacks the proper structure in detail to make recovery successful. For without that, the idea becomes a setup for failure for the residents of the entity within the property and the public safety disaster for the law-abiding tax-paying residents of this community. We as a community are not only fathers, mothers, sons, daughters, grandparents. We're a community of certified mental health representatives, certified and active law enforcement, state-certified correctional officers, and ordained ministers. This community's qualifications validate our ability to assess the entity within the proposed property to be rezoned and make the determination to request to deny the rezoning case. This facility is not regulated, licensed, certified, or governed by any local, state, or federal agency. Document 1, at the bottom of the last paragraph of the official document submitted by the Lowndes County Planning Commission, it says, overall staff found the request inconsistent with the character area, but consistent with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. The community does not know what that comprehensive plan is, but it does not line up with the community's comprehensive plan. At this point, in the last sentence it states, at this point, it is the hope of staff that the benefit of the proposed use brings to the community and the proposed site plan with its buffering and setbacks will mitigate and potentially negative effects on surrounding properties. I'm sorry, but we are not ready to base the security of our family and our children on hope. That's like putting snakes in the front yard and putting my child on a tricycle and sending her out and saying, I hope she don't get bit. This has to be a guarantee. It can't be based on hope alone. So the program summary, as I reviewed it, I found some things. Page 1, last sentence. The entity reserves the right to change, amend, or waive a fee or regulation if the leaders of the entity deem necessary, meaning that they can change any policy that they want within their program and the community could know nothing about it. Page 2, first paragraph, last sentence. Clients will be required to have Life 360 on their phone at all times for accountability purposes. Everyone, that is an app on a phone. It can be suspended, it can be paused, it can be taken off. And who is going to actually monitor this app 100% of the time to ensure where they are? Page 2, second paragraph, fourth sentence states, to leave the property, residents must have someone in phase 2 or higher with them or an approved family member or staff member. This is phase 1, meaning the resident who is there less than 2 months can leave and take a phase 1 resident just over a month with them.
All right, your time's up, sir.
I'm reading directly from this, and this is all I have.
I understand. How much more do you have?
Maybe 2 minutes tops. I'll go through it fast. I will not go off sidebar. I will read this exactly as it is written, sir.
Okay, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Okay. Page 3, paragraph 3 sentence says, a resident can leave the property by himself but must be back by his curfew by 10 o'clock. This is phase 3, meaning that the resident who is there for 3 months can leave the automobile by themselves with nothing but Life 360 between them and the community. The way this appears to the community is that the entity is saying that a resident who may come to them 5, 10, 15 years or more is ready to be on their own in 3 months. I can personally tell you that there's such thing as a suppressed dormant trigger. The trigger for an addict is an event, an item, a smell, nearly anything that enters the senses that reminds the brain's pleasure center, and it can be set off at any time. We have questions. What is so important for the entity to achieve rezoning in agriculture and residential areas? Why is the entity attempting to rezone residential area within the Valdosta city limits in which they were turned down in the recent past, and when that failed, they came to our community to attempt the same thing when there is a plethora of availability in zone-approved areas for them to establish a facility? Why does the CEO of the entity not build this facility on the 35 acres he owns? Why were the county's guidelines transgressed by not posing a sign 15 days as the requirement, and that was within that? Last thing, I just want to ask the board this. When you're in your garden planting and watering, your yard trimming and cutting, are you constantly looking over your shoulder? When you send your kids and grandchildren out to play, do you have to be out there with them every second? If your answer when you lay your head down at night, are you terrified of having forgotten to lock or close something? If your answer is no to these questions, then why would you approve something that would make this community's answers be yes? And if your answer is no to these questions, then for the sake of this community, it should be the same no when you vote on the rezoning. Thank you for your time and the extra time. Thank you, sir.
Any questions, Mr. Henderson? Mr. Henderson, sir, any questions for the speaker?
No
Okay,
questions.
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, anyone that would like to speak in support of this request?
We only get one person?
Yes, sir. You have 7 minutes, just like the other side had. So if you want to come forward and speak, ma'am, we're done on that side.
Mr. Commissioner, I'm here on behalf of Redeem Living.
Please come forward and state your name and address, please.
I'm Mark Perry on behalf of Redeem Living, the applicant. Do we have the opportunity to have myself sort of open and have someone else speak on behalf as well?
You have 7 minutes. Whoever the speaker wants to be needs to, I'm going to give you the 7 minutes just like I did the other side.
Can we have more than one person speak in that?
Yes, you
Okay.
can within
Thank
that 7 minutes,
you.
correct.
Thank you, okay. Okay, thank you. As I said, my name's Mark Perry. I'm here representing Redeem Living in this application. You've already heard from Mr. Dillard what the application is for, so I won't go over that anymore. But who is Redeem Living? Redeem Living is an organization that's designed to offer a structured, faith-based, sober living facility. In just a moment, I'm going to let Mr. Casey Corbin and Mr. Brent Moore stand up and speak a little bit more directly into what that is. But they are a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization. It's a locally organized and operated organization that's been here in Lowndes County for 6 years and has been doing great service here in this community. They've been in different locations and have had letters of support submitted to the board from direct next-door neighbors of previous facilities. The campus that is being proposed is a long-term project. It's potentially a 10-year build-out with a $3 million infrastructure proposed. The impact of the area is very minimal. There's very little traffic added. The business would not be regularly serviced as a normal business would. It's not a business. In fact, it's a residential facility with normal folks. It does, in fact, meet with the comprehensive plan, as you've heard. This is a ministry, and this is a ministry for our community, and it will serve it well. We understand there's fears and concerns The gentleman that just spoke made some very valid points, but I think much of that is coming from a position of lack of education and understanding about what this particular facility does. I am going to let Mr. Corbin, who's a licensed clinical counselor, stand up and speak to that, as I know we're very short on time. And then the founder of this facility is Mr. Brent Moore, who's also here to speak.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello. Hey, I'm Casey Corbin, 2436 Meadowbrook Drive, Valdosta, Georgia. I'm on the board of Redeem Living, which is, again, a 501(c) nonprofit organization, and I've worked as a certified substance abuse counselor for the last 25 years in this area, working with thousands of addicted loved ones and their families in every component of the continuum of care that includes detox, 28-day rehabs, long-term residential and outpatient, and recovery residence homes. To clarify some of the things I've had more prepared to present, no one program works. It's a continuum of care. What Redeem Living is not a halfway house, is not a treatment program. It's not regulated because it doesn't have to be. We don't do treatment. We bring stable people that are not in the early stages of recovery but have achieved the middle stages of recovery and can go home if they want to. This is after they go to treatment. Then they can come to their home or they can come to a recovery residence home like Redeem Living. We provide an additional level of security, accountability, structure, and support for them than they would get at their home. We have, it's safer for all involved. You want to take with me? Just worried about our time.
You have a total of 7 minutes.
Okay, all right. To imagine what this is like, I'd like to use a train car, like 4 train cars for us to consider. The first one might be detox, where someone would choose to go into a detox. The second one would be going into like a 28-day program. The third would be like a long-term residential treatment program. Those 3 are insurance-driven or paid for by entitlements from taxpayers, and that's where the recidivism happens. Like the person that spoke with the opposition, yes, we see that. We see a lot of people cycle through those again and again and again because they don't go to the 4th car. They don't go to the last part where they achieve long-term lasting recovery. I'd like to say that Redeem Living, we do not accept scary people. We do background checks. We only have people that are in sobriety and are in stable, steady sobriety. And we accept people that are there because they've made a choice, voluntary, a very wise choice, to be able to continue their recovery, and they have a lot to lose. They're trying to get back to their wife and their kids. They're going home for weekend visits. They're making a wise decision to be able to stay. We're not talking about a halfway house like a transition center from prison. We don't take inmates. We're not talking about a treatment program where someone's not stable yet. These people have exited a treatment program. They come to us for additional stability and support.
Okay.
As far as security goes, Redeem Living goes above and beyond with security. The first level is peer accountability, in that somebody's roommate can tell you. I may not be able to tell when somebody is heading towards relapse that's in recovery. You may not be able to tell that, but an addict, especially early in their recovery, can tell. They're the best line of defense, and they have to report if somebody is acting odd or we think that they're going to relapse. The community, their housemates, the community at large is the best line of defense for knowing that. Then Redeem Living goes above and beyond, and we provide security that our compensated staff members. Our current compensated staff member has 5 years of sobriety and is for both the neighbors and for the residents.
All right, sir, your time, we've got about 12 seconds left in this portion. If Mr. Moore wanted to speak, there's about 2 minutes left, 2 minutes and 6 seconds.
Good evening. My name is Brent Moore. My address is 3850 C.O. Moore Road. That's all I needed. So I do want to once again ask for just, I first want to say this. Redeem Living is not a scary place. It's not a place where anybody would be concerned. We have operated for 5 years. We have never had a neighbor complain. We have never had an issue, 6 years actually we've been operating. Never had a neighbor complain, never had a neighbor cause any problems. On the contrary, the neighbors have actually reached out to us for help, guys helping them move, different stuff like that. These men are normal men. They can live anywhere in this community. They already do. We could potentially still get this property and we could move men into this house, and there was nothing that anybody can do, as y'all all know. That is a non-regulated situation where people can live in a house. I don't want to make light of anybody's concerns, but I do want to make sure that I do address any concerns that may be had. We will not, once again, we will not be housing anybody in that facility with any violent background, any sexual related assault charges, any habitual crimes where they would not be able to be allowed to live anywhere else in this community. We'll go above and beyond that. I don't see why there is a reason why anybody that has already spoken could live on the same road after he's been an addict and confessed an addict. Why can't we? And that's my biggest question that I have. What is the issue that we have found to make this where it is not a possibility? There's been a lot of statistics thrown around through, I'm sure y'all have received emails and notifications, and the website that has been presented by the opposing party. And there's a lot of statistics thrown around about a halfway house. I did some research on faith-based sober living facilities, and I've came up with a list of everything that I've found where it's a dangerous situation.
Okay,
If you look,
Mr. Moore, I'm
there's
sorry,
absolutely
your
nothing.
time, the 7 minutes
sir.
is up. Speaker, Commissioners, I'll ask, do y'all have any comments or any questions for those that were here in support? No questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Would you be willing to put up a privacy fence, a buffer fence between your facility and the two houses to the east?
Yes, sir. There was two people that addressed at the Planning and Zoning Commission. One of them was Mr. McDougal, who was concerned about his drainage issue. We will make sure that whatever we do not negatively impact his drainage issue. If anything, we'll do anything we can to help him. By putting in a pond, it should help him as well. And then we won't do anything to negatively impact his land, and we'll be glad to work directly with an engineer on that. And Ms. Canada, the direct neighbor to the right of the property, did request a privacy fence. I told her I would put a privacy fence on her entire property line at no cost to her, and we would do that as soon as we would like to. And we are meeting all the minimum setback requirements that have been proposed as far as the buffers and everything else, and we're actually exceeding them.
I was just saying,
Mom with 7 kids. Like, my property's touching it, and my children are in the yard all the time.
Ma'am, please.
also, I noticed he said that if not approved, you still can put houses out there. Is that something you plan on doing?
I said that we could still move into the house that's currently there.
I thought you were referring to the property itself.
The property that's there already has one house on it.
No, I thought something to the fact that you said if not approved, that you could put a house on it or do something because it's not really regulated now.
No, if I understood it correct, there already is a house on the piece of
Okay.
property, which there's nothing there that would prevent these folks from moving into that house.
Oh, so you're saying putting them in that house?
We could, yes, sir, we could. If either way, we could move a group of men into that house. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, sir.
All right, at this time, I'll close the public hearing portion of the meeting, and Commissioners, I'll turn it back over to you for your consideration.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes,
would
ma'am.
like to follow the recommendation of the planning commission and recommend denial.
Okay, we have a motion to deny. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, we'll call the vote. All in favor of denial, please raise your right hand. Those in opposition? Guess where it lands. Well, I tell you, this is these decisions aren't easy. We have to look at all the facts. We have to look at everything that is involved here. And I will say this, there is a need in not only this community, but in all communities, for facilities such as what is being proposed so that we can help these folks get to a point in their life no different than the same point that one of the previous speakers had spoken. He took a different route. However, there are some that necessarily may not be able to take that route. The ministry is extremely important, the role that it plays in that process to be able to get through recovery. I can tell you this, my decision would be in support of this, and so I vote to support it, which defeats the motion to deny. But I can assure you, as a community, let me assure you that Lowndes County, and Mr. Moore, I'm speaking to you as well, Lowndes County is going to be watching this very, very closely because we have a responsibility as well. You have told these folks, you have told this community about how you're going to operate this, what you're going to do, your ministry. We understand the fact, your passion. We get all that, and we're very appreciative of the fact, and these men should be very appreciative of the fact as well that that someone in our community is stepping up, trying to help them, and we pray that process will be beneficial to them and be beneficial to this community as well. So, with that, the motion is defeated 3-2.
So we need another motion.
So we need another motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the rezoning request with the two conditions that they spoke about in the,
With the fencing.
with the fencing and the drainage issue, with those two conditions.
Good. We have a motion then to approve the request with the conditions, with those two conditions. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, I'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, raise your right hand. Again, mine is to support the motion. Okay. Motion passes. No, sir, we're closed. This case is closed.
My kids are playing in the yard, somebody can come and be responsible then.
The blonde hair lady?
She the one playing with the phone right now. Phone is right in front of her.
Oh, okay.
I'm very disappointed in you, Mr. Weisenbaker. Yes.
Thank you.
You're my district, but I'll make sure you don't get any more votes.
All right, order, please.
We're supposed to rely on.
Let's go ahead and leave. Let's go ahead and leave. Anyone that would like to leave, we'll give you time to leave. All righty, we'll move on now to agenda item 7C. This is REZ 2022-11, McKeish LLC, 900 Lakes Boulevard. Currently, it's CG, has county utilities, and involves 1.07 acres. Mr. Dillard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this request is for a previously approved commercial general zoning. The current property does have approximately 11 conditions on it from the 2014 case. It is within a established residential and urban service area according to the future land use character map. There are no wetlands on the property, as you can see here. And this is the proposed location of the 1.07 acre site for the development of a Dairy Queen. Staff has attached the conditions for your consideration from the previous request, and the applicant would like to remove numbers 4 regarding the landscaping berm, number 8, the architectural design standards, number 9, the request for dumpster locations, and number 11, addressing light pollution, in order to develop the site as the Dairy Queen presented here. Additional landscaping has been proposed by the applicant and the golf course owner to mitigate this, and they will be shown here in the property. This is currently the view from the Lakes Boulevard. This is the proposed site standing approximately in the middle, looking southeast towards the existing residential. And again, on the southwest corner, looking back towards the residence. This is from the southeast corner of the property, looking back towards the Family Dollar and the strip mall, as seen there. Again, looking towards the northeast, towards Lakes Boulevard and the existing residential property. And again, approximately halfway up. This is the proposed site plan by the developer. You'll note that the 7 circles in the top right are the street lights proposed, and there is a proposed fencing and landscaping buffer in addition to the required buffer between commercial and residential zonings as proposed. Overall, staff finds the request consistent with the current growth trends in the area and with community goals of the comprehensive plan. The TRC had no additional objectionable comments, and the Planning Commission recommends approval of the 4 conditions being removed by a vote of 5-4-1. We do have a petition. Approximately 765 members have signed in support of the Dairy Queen rezoning, and then there are approximately 130 opposed to the rezoning request.
Okay. Any questions from Mr. Dillard? All right. Hearing none, then we'll move into the public hearing portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in opposition? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Well, thank you, Commissioners, for hearing us tonight. I'm Cheryl Oliver. I live at 5366 Moss Oak Trail with my husband, Jack. For 45 years, this has been my neighborhood. And Jack has been a property owner at 5310 Moss Oak Trail since 1984. So that's a combined total of 83 years of our affiliation with the Francis Lake neighborhood. And I know I don't look that old. I'm not sure about Jack. In 2014, a group of homeowners and concerned citizens came before you, that's just 8 years ago, to ask for your help in preserving the integrity of the Francis Lake subdivision and adjacent communities. This request was sparked by an application for rezoning property fronting State Highway 376 from residential to general commercial. We protested, and Commissioner Marshall came down and walked the property with us. Subsequently, you saw fit to grant that rezoning application, but with 11 conditions designed to protect our neighborhood and our treasured natural resource, Francis Lake. Before any of us knew what was happening, earlier this year, a parcel of that land was sold and plans for a Dairy Queen fast food restaurant were initiated. The real estate agent on that deal and Planning Commission member, Steve Miller, made the statement in our neighborhood meeting on June 8th at the Lakes Library that pursuant to the land purchase, during the design phase of the Dairy Queen, they forgot about the 2014 conditions that precluded the building of a fast food restaurant. So suddenly, there was a Dairy Queen coming soon sign fronting Highway 376, which instantly kicked up a firestorm of inquiries and concerns from property owners. We immediately began a grassroots effort to inform members of the community. Petitions were circulated and are being submitted tonight, have been. I want to make one note about our petition. Every single signature on that petition came from a property owner inside the Francis Lake neighborhood or Hammock Lake, and some even on Ancient Oak where the patio homes are. Many of the signers of our petition are in this room tonight, but I know I've been asked not to ask them to stand. The Greater Lowndes Planning Commission meeting to consider the removal of the conditions was pushed ahead by 1 week because of the Memorial Day holiday, giving property owners little time to prepare a pushback. And needless to say, the Planning Commission, with little discussion, voted to recommend that the County Commission approve removal of the 4 critical conditions to accommodate the DQ construction. We felt and we feel totally blindsided. And in the ensuing 3 weeks, between May 23rd and tonight, our neighborhood has become galvanized against the entire project. We were advised by you, Chairman Slaughter, to meet with the purchaser's attorney, Jack Langdale. A meeting with Mr. Langdale and Mr. Mit Patel, the purchaser of the land, took place this past Sunday on the site, and Mr. Patel seemed to listen and to hear our concerns about light pollution, exterior overhead lighting, vehicle headlights, and lights from 2 pass-through windows, which are on the east side of the restaurant nearest the residential property, noise pollution, loud music from cars, speakers from the restaurant, delivery, and garbage trucks, water and debris runoff and its potentially detrimental effects on Francis Lake, dumpster odors, and the inevitable vermin and feral animals that accompany them. And by the way, the dumpster is located on the southeast corner of the rear of the DQ site, nearest the residential properties. Litter containment. The storm drain near our western entrance is frequently inundated with debris from commercial establishments on down the road. Increased traffic congestion right across from a bank, a church, and the main entrance to Hammock Lake subdivision. Visual impact of the site from the south and east of the restaurant. We asked for a visually attractive, indestructible fence, a minimum of 8 feet high, in the absence of a protective berm, with well-maintained shrubs so as to block the dumpster and headlights and minimize nighttime light pollution. We've been told that the golf course owner has agreed to construct a wooden fence and install shrubs along the south end and part of the eastern side of the site. You'll learn from the next speaker that some concessions have been suggested, but the design for the DQ is mandated by their corporation, so it allows for little change to the restaurant and the grounds. We did ask for, and we received assurance, that all DQ signage will be turned off during non-business hours. I'm almost through. And that parking lot lights will face downward. We're also assured that only a few lights required for security will remain illuminated during non-business hours. As you know, promises made and promises kept aren't always synonymous. We come before you tonight with the same plea that we made in 2014. Please, please help us protect our quality of life, our property values, our neighborhood integrity, our lifetime investments, our wildlife, and help us preserve a valued natural resource.
Okay.
If you decide, I have one statement, can I make
Okay.
one? Okay, one
Real quick,
statement.
please.
If you decide to remove the 4 conditions, at the very least, please ensure that all the concerns I've mentioned will be addressed and enforced. My closing message to you is, what has changed? Doesn't our neighborhood deserve to be protected as much as it did in 2014 and as much as it will need to be in the future? Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Oliver? In my conversation with Ms. Oliver, I told her that each side would get 5 minutes, but she had another speaker that would like to speak. I would give them 5 minutes. So I will also give those in support 10 minutes. So do you have your other speaker here with you tonight?
Our environmentalist was unable to make the meeting,
Okay,
Chairman.
okay. So then, unnecessary, the 5 minutes. All right, thank you, Ms. Oliver.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in support of this request? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Jack Langdale, 701 North Patterson Street. Commissioners, thank you for considering our request tonight. I'm here on behalf of your applicant. Our applicant has purchased the property as has been described.
Pull it up a little bit, Jack.
Sure. Our applicant has purchased the property as described and does intend to construct a Dairy Queen restaurant on the property. The property is zoned, as everyone knows, CG, and Dairy Queen is an allowable use on the property. The issue tonight is the conditions that are on the property, and I would like to talk through what those conditions are and how that affects the development and what we have proposed to do in its stead. First, condition 4 is a requirement to construct a 60-foot wide berm on the east side of the property. The entire tract is only 160 feet wide. If there is a 60-foot requirement for the berm, it will not be possible to construct the restaurant or practically, or the most uses that might be allowed in CG zoning. It would be extremely difficult to do anything when you take that much out of the parcel, especially considering other required setbacks. The second one is the requirement for no less than 10% masonry siding. And the DQ restaurant is a franchise. We have a franchisee who's making the request, and we are limited with what the franchisor will approve, and the request to remove that condition is simply it can't be approved with the Dairy Queen rules that are burdened on the franchisee. The next condition we're asking to remove is a dumpster cannot be located within 200 feet of the property line. With the the lot only being 160 feet wide, a 200-foot restriction on the dumpster would obviously mean it couldn't be located anywhere on this property. The dumpster setback was put in place, I suspect, when it was a larger parcel, but this parcel that's subdivided now is 160 feet wide, so this requirement just would not allow a restaurant application on the property. The last one is the request to remove the condition about light pollution. And it's not that we don't want to address light pollution. We intend to address light pollution. I'm going to explain how. We're just asking to remove the condition so we don't have any issues going forward. But I want to talk about how we're addressing light pollution. And I also want to comment on this applicant's willingness to have met and talked to some of these adjoining property owners. And we felt like a lot of them had reasonable things they were asking. We met on the property over the weekend, and we have both talked multiple times to many property owners. And as you see on the revised conceptual that was circulated on the screen earlier, the restaurant owner is going to be responsible for constructing an 8-foot fence along the portion in front of the restaurant. And if you look along the site plan on the inside of the fence between the restaurant and the fence, there will also be constructed a row of viburnum, which is a really thick landscaping application. We actually asked some of the neighbors if they had another landscaping that they would prefer, and they all agreed, no, if you're going to, well, the ones we were talking to said, if you're going to landscape, viburnum seems to be the thick material that would be good here for light and sound. So we've agreed to construct the viburnum all the way along on the outside of the detention area on the south side of the property and all along the east, about halfway up the tract. You can see it there. So you have viburnum between the restaurant and the fence. You have an 8-foot fence that is along the south and on the east side, the southeast side. And on the other side, we're going to plant azaleas and crepe myrtles as are depicted along here. The owner of the golf course, J.R. Leonard, is going to take the fence construction and the azaleas and the crepe myrtles all the way down to block the other commercial parcel beside the Dairy Queen and to block the Family Dollar parking lot. It's been pointed out several times the Family Dollar doesn't look good, and we agree. So the fence and the azaleas and the crepe myrtles are going to continue all the way down to the adjoining grocery store area and then down that road to where the existing fence is. So if you think about the view of the property from where it is now, you've got 376, you've got traffic, you've got noise. You're going from that view to a view of azaleas and crepe myrtles and a fence. On the lighting, we have discussed that as well. This lighting is not the type of halogen bulb that you see on a street light that gives light off in other directions. It is just a downward pointed LED, And the manufacturers have said it should light an area between 5 to 10 feet around the base.
Mr. Langdale, I'm gonna give you about one more minute.
So when considering the overall, how we're addressing these conditions, we would greatly appreciate the commissioners considering staff's recommendation and the planning commission's recommendation and supporting our applicant. Is there any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Langdale?
No question.
Okay.
Just one question, Mr. Langdale. The dumpster that's on the eastern side of the property, is it possible to move it to the western side of the property?
Well, we actually have already attempted to address that with Dairy Queen. Someone from the neighborhood had contacted the applicant and asked that same question, and we addressed it. And they said because of the flow of traffic and the dumpster's going to be emptied 3 times per week, by the way, I didn't mention that. But because of the flow of traffic, their franchise would not approve us moving it to the other location. This is the footprint that they've approved.
And how far on the eastern side of the property, how far does that fence go up? Does it go up enough to where the car is turning in the drive-through lane or turning around, coming around the back of the building, those lights are blocked from the neighborhood?
It will go all the way down to the property line. If you look at the view of the vehicles turning, they're going in the southerly direction and then they turn to go back east. When they turn in that eastern direction, the headlights are going to go into viburnum, fence, and then whatever's on the other side. As it turns to go back north, where there are no houses constructed now, it could light the corner of that property that is vacant by 376, but you'll have to see the car would have to turn and go back in the northerly direction to do that. And the viburnum continues through most of the eastern property line as well.
Okay. Any other questions?
The lighting, will it go around the perimeter of the property and
It aims,
directional down?
that's correct. It is around the perimeter and it's aiming toward the middle. And it, like I mentioned earlier, it's not the halogen bulb like a street light that projects outward. It's aiming down at the parking lot.
Any other
Thank you, sir.
questions?
Chairman, I had one for I guess, JD. It almost sounds like no development or no type of, I guess, store or anything possibly can go there in the future based on some of these conditions. Is that true?
The potential for the property to be developed, there is additional space, but this particular piece, the 1.07 acres and where it's site selected, with these current conditions, would severely limit the development, as Mr. Langdale stated. However, again, there is adjacent property between the Family Dollar and the proposed location, but this location, as depicted and properly recorded and platted, with these conditions, would not allow for many uses to be put on that site, on that particular 1 acre site.
I was just looking at the 200 feet dumpster and different things like that. Those are things that perhaps may prohibit any type of development, and that's what I was just concerned about.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Langdale.
Thank you.
Okay. At this point then, we will close the public hearing portion of the meeting, and Commissioners, I'll turn it back over to you for your consideration.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the request to delete the 4 conditions with the conditions that have been talked about tonight, with the fence and the landscaping and the lighting going downward.
So you're asking then that really is that those conditions that they're requesting, that they be, really, the conditions are in place but amended?
Yes.
We want to be sure that we get this right, so we want to be sure that Mr. Langdale can provide us with what that agreement is as far as what those conditions, actual changes are. If you have something in writing so that you could bring that forward, or do you have anything?
All I have is the site plan that I submitted earlier. It doesn't have the height of the fence, but The fence is to be 8 feet.
The fence could be
So-
clear that it's a, if you would state an 8-foot fence.
8-foot fence.
Solid fence, solid fence.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, of course, so.
so are you clear with your motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Langdale.
Thank you.
No, no, sir, I'm sorry. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, I'll call the vote. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Okay, motion carries.
Do what?
Sometimes you gotta have one or two of them a year. I want to be sure that we get what our compromise is with those conditions. Okay. Be on the recording and also we get that down. Need to make it right. All right, we'll move on now to agenda item 7D, and this is case number REZ 2022-12, Pittman, Phelps, Leonard, Moss Oak Trail, R10 to CG is the request. It has county utilities, and this involves 1.63 acres. Mr. Dillon.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This application was withdrawn by the applicant on 6/8 via correspondence.
Okay. So it has been withdrawn, so you will not be considering this case tonight. Thank you, Mr. Dillard. All right, we're moving on now to agenda item 8A, and this is the Lowndes County Accountability Court's grant approval and cash match. Commissioners, you heard this morning at the work session from Ms. Jennifer about this grant. Do you have any other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion carries. Agenda item 8B is the Lowndes County Juvenile Accountability Court FY '23 budget and grant award as well. You heard this morning from Jeffrey in regards to that agenda item. Do you have any questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion carries. Agenda item 8C is the annual contract renewal with the State of Georgia's Department of Corrections. Who's going, you've got Miss.
Yes, sir.
Miss Dukes has that from Miss Cumbers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This contract is for our 3 work details, 1 for the engineering department, 2 for public works. The amount of the contract is $147,954 annually. We only expend these funds if we utilize the services of the present details.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Dukes? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item, no, we need to vote on it too, don't we? Man, I'm ready to get through this meeting.
Motion
Okay.
to approve.
I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Agenda item 7D is the American Rescue Plan funding for utilities repairs with Carter and Sloop Engineering. Mr. Stalvey.
Yes, sir. This is the engineering agreement with Carter and Sloop Engineers for the American Rescue Plan funding. This project covers Phase 1 and 2 of the LAS expansion, the Valdale Road water main extension, and the permanent bypass pumps on our trunk line lift stations. The total engineering cost for the projects is $1,220,000. Staff recommends approval and authorize the chairman to sign the agreements.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Stalvey? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Agenda item 9, County Manager's Report. Ms. Dukes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did want to provide you all with an update on our current fuel cost. The last update that I provided was on May the 24th. At that time, we were paying $3.58 for unleaded and $4.36 per gallon for diesel. We are currently paying $4.26 for unleaded and $5.19 for diesel. So that cost continues to climb for us. Ms. Black and I met about this afternoon prior to our budget recommendation to make sure that there was not something that we need to change. We feel like that the fleet balance that we have and what we've currently budgeted for the upcoming year, if things will level off sooner rather than later, then we should be fine moving into the new year. But we do not want to overlook any efficiencies that we can make with our departments from a staff standpoint. So our department head meeting next week, the staff and I will be discussing how we can share some rides across the county if we need to make some hours adjustments, things like that. We are not recommending any cutting in services, just making sure that we are being as frugal as we can with our fuel usage. We hosted Leadership Lounge today for Public Safety Day, so Ms. Barwick has been with them since early this morning. Our offices will be closed on Monday in observance of Juneteenth, and the Southside Library is hosting Juneteenth events at the Lowndes County Civic Center. Last, we are keeping an eye on the heat with regards to our employees and our citizens. Ashley is talking to some of our community partners about extending cooling shelters. We are possibly looking at some temperatures well in excess of 100 degrees next week, which is going to push the heat index somewhere probably between 110 and 112 degrees. Our citizens who do not have air conditioning or have compromised health situations are not going to be in a good shape there. So we're working on that. Also, I've partnered today, as a matter of fact, with Pepsi. And they, through the summer months, are going to put a cooler in the lobby of our building and provide free bottled water to citizens. As you're aware, we get a lot of foot traffic. People have to come to the courthouse that may not have air conditioning in their cars, and we certainly don't want Captain Rayberg and his staff to call any more squads than they may need. And Ms. Vanek will tell you that those squads sometimes can be few and far between. So if we can help with hydration there, we will be working on that. And the last thing that I have is just on behalf of the staff, and I thank you for your leadership. I know that the decisions that you have to make are not always easy, but we are always proud of your process and stand here to support you moving forward. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Dukes? Okay. Ms. Lovren, do we have any citizens wishing to be heard? We've heard, haven't we?
Recognize Ms. Cody.
Okay. I'm sorry, ma'am, you have to turn them in prior to the meeting.
I'm sorry, nobody told me that.
Yep, I'm sorry. I'll be glad to meet with you if you'll just hang on, though. I mean, that's not a problem. I just don't want to do it in the meeting. Okay? Any other business?
Motion to dismiss.
Motion to adjourn? So moved.